Hey everybody, it's Trevor Connor with Hearts and Minds, and you're listening to the Get Mental podcast. This show is bringing technique and tools and science and stories all together in one place for those who have a desire at making not only athletes and teams better at performance, but also making them a better human being. On this episode, mental coach Dave Matthews and I are going over all things as it relates to confidence, and we hit hard at a very heavy and personal topic to us, in a topic that we see plaguing our youth, and that is how identity is becoming so engrossed and wrapped up with who these young athletes are. Listen, I'm so glad that you're here. Let's jump right in.
Okay, welcome to the first ever Hearts and Minds Mental Fitness Podcast. My name is Dave Matthews, and I am here with the distinguished Trevor Connor. Trevor, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I mean, this is the first podcast that we're shooting, so I feel like it's only right.
Let's do it. Yeah, so I'm Trevor Connor, founder of Hearts and Minds, and really the Focus 5 training app. And Dave and I have been kind of the visionaries behind this whole idea for, I think we got started with the Hearts and Minds, or the Focus 5 app. We got started with that in 2020. I think it was at the end of the pandemic. We said we need to do something as a business. So Hearts and Minds, though, I believe we opened shop in Texas in 2018. So we're coming up on 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, love that. I didn't even know it's only been 5 years. It feels like it's been shorter, longer. I don't know. Both, all of the above. No, former college athletes. And yeah, I think the whole premise of this mental fitness podcast is, I mean, we're sports psych guys, right? Sports psychology has been around for a long time. I met Trevor Connor way back in like 2013, I want to say. It was a while ago. After undergrad, going into grad school, then yeah, we just want to get back. I think the mental fitness is the one thing that's underappreciated, especially about sports. I mean, you have nutritionists, you have everything under the sun when it comes to your biology and your physiology in order to get better. But we would argue that your mental mindset is the thing that's going to separate good from great. And how do we get there? And we're going to talk about all that stuff because I think mental fitness it's in now, right? Whether or not it's psychology based and helping you with your psychology or mental wellness, or even into performance psychology and the psychology of high performing athletes. Today we're going to talk about confidence and where that comes. It's super multifaceted, and confidence is one of the things that a lot of coaches coach, right? We want people to have more confidence, but they don't teach you how to do it. Or anything of that nature. So I guess I'll throw it over to you, Connor. That's really our first question is, what is confidence? Can you even define it within the sporting context?
Sporting context. Okay, here we go. This is a tough one. Here we go. I think confidence is not only just a state of mind, not just an emotional state, not just a skill, but it's all, you mentioned it, is a complex thing. It's all those things, but it's also a state of, I'm going to use a different word, it's a state of assurance. From a level of, I believe in something, whether my skill set, whether my abilities, whether in the coach, whether in the team, whether I believe in X before it even happens. So repackaged in different words, I think a very assured athlete is an athlete filled with tremendous faith. And not just from a religious context. Like, dude, the pure raw definition of faith is commitment before knowing. Like, you're committing to an action, a mindset, a skill, a technique, a decision. You're committing without actually knowing how it's going to go. And, okay, well, what precedes that? So many different things. That's the multifaceted thing you're talking about. And, Hearts and Minds anyway. Actually, you and I, we developed this on a whiteboard back at the U.S. Olympic training site where we first connected with way back in 2014, I think. And we developed a mathematical formula to how to really hack your confidence. So your preparation goes into, your past performance goes into, self-talk, body language, environment. And again, I think we could probably debate and we could probably come up with, extend that list a few more. But most of the research that we were reading way back even in 2014 was pointing towards that was the direction where most of the confidence comes from. So I think a confident athlete, if I were to give a best simple definition, is a very assured athlete, a very strong faith filled athlete, the believing that they have the ability to execute without actually knowing what's about to happen on the other side. And how do you get there? Practice. Oh, yeah. Past experiences. That helps. Oh, yeah. The languages you say in your head. Okay, yes. The way you carry yourself. So it's like all these elements go into it. And I think that's what makes it really complex. And I think that's also one of the problems. Tell me your opinion in a second. But like, I think that's one of the problems that coaches really struggle with when they're trying to talk to athletes about confidence. It is a complex topic. And they find themselves trying to explain how to be confident, but they'll talk in circles and sometimes confuse athletes a lot more. Coach just tells me to keep running hard. So anyway, it is a complex topic, but yeah, that's what we're going to unpack a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I love your definition of it from the faith standpoint, but also from the assurance standpoint, right? Like faith is like that kind of, at least the way that you described it and defined it, is kind of like that future oriented, like I have confidence in myself, my abilities, but I also have the confidence to know that I can approach something into the future and have that sense of, and this is another definition, and it's very parallel to assurance, certainty, right? Confidence and certainty are very, very similar. And assurance is kind of that same thing where it's like, you know, how certain are you to accomplish a certain task? And actually that's self-efficacy, which is from Bandura way back in the day when it comes to like psychology and like looking at the science of psychology. Is Bandura kind of coined this term of self-efficacy, which is different than self-confidence, that has to do with task-specific things, right? So let's take baseball as a sport, for example. If you're going to step up to bat, I could say, you know, what is your level of certainty that you're going to hit a home run during this at-bat? And you could say, well, based on my percentages, based on who's pitching to me, what, you know, I love the fastball, you know, low and away. And if I hit that and I can get there, yeah, my level of certainty is probably around, I don't know, 5-10%, maybe if it's that specific pitch, maybe it's 50%, which is still pretty high. Again, baseball being specific, but it's a totally different question than if I asked you, how confident are you that you're going to hit a home run at this at bat? You could say, oh, kind of. But if I said, what's your level of certainty? That kind of brings it into like numerical phrasing, right? Like, oh, my level of certainty is probably 10% or what have you. But yeah, confidence, very hard thing to define. But I would kind of define it as your sense of certainty as a performer, in this context being an athlete, to a given task. And then if we want to branch out and make it more broad, maybe it's to the game itself or who you're playing. But confidence is definitely one of those things, to your point, that coaches have a really hard time coming up with how you actually do it. And yeah, those things I want to talk about now. I mean, Trevor, you're a former athlete, and maybe some of the athletes that you talk to as well. What do you think is like the high frequency thing to gain your confidence, or like what like hinges upon that you've seen in athletes when it comes to being their most confident self? Like what is the source?
In 10 years of being a mental coach, I wish I could really point my finger at one and nail it down and like speak with certainty and say, that's it. That's the spot.
Yeah.
Of the thousands of athletes I've worked with, I can't sit here confidently and like lie to you and say, oh man, that's where it is. But I can tell you a general sense. I think above everything, it really comes down to, first of all, how's that athlete orient his or her attitude? Their attitude is such a tremendous predictor of success. Back to Martin Seligman and the founder of father of modern day positive psychology. He was doing positive psych studies back in the 80s, 90s, even back in the 70s. And that was back when it wasn't popular, positive psych movement. But Seligman really nails it down. Psychology for a long time was about studying what's wrong with people. And then Seligman comes in and says, wait. I think we've got this backwards. Let's study what's right with people. Let's study the good things. So there's so many different facets that go into being a confident and an assured athlete, a certain athlete, a believing athlete that I got the skill set and the ability and the performance and the preparation to do it. But I think everything is kind of governed first and foremost by their attitude. What are you willing to push past? What are you willing to say no to? what people are you willing to not hang around? What environment, or if you're a team leader and a team captain, what kind of environment are you setting for everybody else? And again, not to beat the dead horse, I think so much of it's grounded back on your attitude and worldview, how you perceive and interact with the world, how you interact with others, how you deal with difficulty and setback. I think so much of that fundamentally comes right back to attitude.
Yeah. And it's really like that orientation, right? And this kind of reminds me of, I forget the term for it, but there's like a internal orientation or an external orientation, but it's essentially like, oh, I'm gonna have to look this up. But when things happen to you, you have a certain predisposition to say that was of me, or it was of luck or of chance, right? And that's kind of an attitude, right? Or a filtration system through which your mind kind of views things. And that's kind of like what you're talking about there. And I absolutely love that. I guess for me, if I were to ask the same question to myself, it would probably, and I almost hate to say this, it would be outcomes. External outcomes are the single most thing that I believe athletes hinge their confidence upon. And I know that you're about to jump on this, and I will too, about why this is a terrible thing to hang your hat on. Like, oh, when are you the most confident? I'm the most confident as an athlete when things go right. Well, how easy is that? That's silly. That's insanely easy to anybody to say that, oh yeah, I'm the most confident athlete when things go right. Of course you are. So am I. And, the NCAA tournament is on right now. And one of the things that I see in, sorry, you froze up there, Trevor, for a second. You back?
Yeah. So what this happened with Rohan, just keep going. The video is recording. What it's doing is it's uploading in real time. So just keep going. So don't worry about it.
Gotcha.
Cut it, Jacob.
One of the things that I see right now is NCAA March Madness. Now, streaky shooters happen. I think there are a lot of streaky shooters this past weekend in the NCAA March Madness. And what that is you hit a shot and then you come back and another shot goes in and you're feeling yourself. You're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like I'm gonna keep, give me the ball, feed me the rock, and your teammates do. So it's not only they can see your confidence as well as you can start to get more confident with shots that you hit. And a lot of athletes that are out there that are listening to this are like, oh yeah, that's awesome. But Trev, I'm going to throw it to you. What's the problem with hanging your hat on the confidence of external things of, hey, things are going right, therefore I'm getting more confident? What's the problem with that?
Well, that's a cool thing, but you can't control it.
Bingo.
Okay. Bring in the soapbox. Plan it. All right, here we go. Let me set up for a moment. All right, you cannot control your outcomes. I'm sorry, you just can't. So I wrote my first book over this intentionally because I was fed up with the culture at large saying control what you can control. All right, so low key shout out promo. If you haven't read my book, buy it. It's over my left shoulder. Find it on Amazon. Just ace it. Controlling Life's Uncontrollables. All right, so low key shout out. Anyway. The purpose of the book is to really outline and share with the individual what is truly in your control. Well, outcomes is not. It's just something to strive for. Does it matter? Heck yeah, it matters. But it can't matter more than things in the middle of the circle. First, got to read the book to find out more. Sorry, that's all my spoiler. But
shameless plug.
I know, shameless plug. I think we should run some sales just because people listening to this podcast. Hey, tell you what, if you want the book, you want like a personalized copy, hey, drop me a note, Trevor at HM Perform. I'll get you a personalized copy. I'll beat Amazon's pricing.
We'll put it as a link in the show notes.
Wait, I'm the publisher. Okay, but anyway, I'll get you a copy. Don't worry, I got you. The point though, outcomes, you can't control them. Can we do things to improve them? Absolutely. But there's an element that a lot of athletes, they believe a false narrative that they have more power over them than they actually do. And the way that we lay it out, even from a mental training perspective, is you literally have no control. Just assume that and accept that. Because when you're more deliberate about the things that you can control, everything else is easier. Your confidence game rises. Your anxiety is actually going to drop. The goals that you have become more attainable and really trackable. So,
and I want to hold on. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to cut you off right there because I think that's a really, really important point, right? You train and practice every single day for what? The outcomes. We're not going to sit here and say that the outcomes don't matter. You're literally training. You're lifting weights you're eating the foods, you're sleeping on time, hopefully, and you're doing all the right things in order to what? Influence the outcome. That you have no control over. Like, I think that, like, it's such a profound point, and I think that me and you talk about it all the time, but I really do want to drive that point home. That's, we're not going to sit here and say that the outcomes aren't important. We're not going to sit here and say that. However, you train 100% of the time for an outcome that you have no little or no control over. Think about that.
Humbling point. And when I go and I train this topic, specifically the topic of ACE, when I go and I train and I do keynotes, I'll get all kinds of pushback, all kinds of people like really want to like fight me over it. And I welcome it. They need that, because we need that back and forth discussion and conversation, because if you're going to tear down a previous existing mindset, you first have to illuminate the thinking flaws and the thinking traps. And I think that's one of the problems that people get sucked into. You're right. You're so right, Dave. People are athletes. They're training day in, day out for that outcome. Why? Outcomes matter. They do. They totally do. My net on this is, and again, I'll step off the soapbox, but see, I stepped on. Now I got to step off. My net is, you cannot control it, but we have to rethink the way that you do about them. And when you do, and you put it in this rightful place, those outcomes no longer will control you and your confidence.
And I like that, right? That frame of mind to where your outcomes don't control you. That's the crux of this, because again, if you're going to base your confidence off of your external environment, essentially things that are outside of you, you have to also acknowledge that you cannot control those things that are outside of you, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, your confidence is now fluctuating up and down based off of things that you can't control. So it would behoove you to say, I should probably hang my hat on things that I can control as anchors to my confidence. And the more I anchor my confidence in something, the more unshakable that confidence is, right? That sense of, again, certainty, whether that's in myself, in my skills of myself, that influence the outcome so much, right? Again, I'm not going to tell you as an athlete to stop shooting 3-pointers for 3 hours a day because you can't control the outcome. No, of course you need practice. And of course you need to go to the batting cages and do the right things when it comes to practice. But you also have to, like, that little voice in your head has to say, hey, if things don't go my way, just remember, I did everything that I could to influence it, and I still didn't get the right outcome. But does that mean that I'm a worse player because of it? No. Does that mean that my confidence should be shaken? No, it shouldn't. I should still remain, like, faithful in myself. But Trevor, that brings me to my question really is, when athletes talk about, hey man, things are going wrong, I'm in the game, and it's halftime and I'm really not playing well. How do I turn it around in the second half? Like, what's my, and I know it's highly individualistic and we meet with athletes on a one-on-one basis all the time, but I guess, like, what's your, your top 3 or top 4, whatever it is, bounce back techniques to kind of recover confidence when it's lost?
Well, those are me. My first question: are we talking about confidence and or is there anything else? Are we talking specific confidence?
Yeah, we're talking confidence. Yeah, so, like, okay. It's halftime. I'm in the locker room and my confidence is shaken. I'm not playing well. How do I come out and regain that confidence?
Well, first things first, I want to live in the here and now.
Sure.
Point 1, I want to live in the here and now. Do you have the mental fortitude and the willingness? It's not just the toughness I'm talking about, but the willingness to accept whatever just happened and leave it in the past. Do you have the willingness to say, hey, I'm 0 for 6 downtown, even though I am maybe the best shooter on my team? Or, another sport, let's take football. You're a receiver, you drop 3 passes, but yet you're one of the better receivers on the team, and you know that QB is going to still come for you. He's going to be looking for your number on specific plays, on specific routes, on specific setups defensively. Like, it doesn't matter what sport it is. Are you willing to leave the past in the past? Are you willing to literally, and this is almost used so much now, it's so watered down. Do you have the ability to in the will to just look down and literally anchor your mind to your feet in that moment? Point 1. Because if you can, that whole second half can be a total turnaround that people write in newspapers and like, woo, yeah, look at that guy, man, he's awesome. Like, that's where the second half heroes come, is because their willingness to not be defined by what just happened back here, but instead live for what is to come. So point one, do you have the ability in the foresight to be able to live in the present moment? Accept the past. Okay. Point two, don't live out in that second half with, what's a good way to say it? With fake confidence. I'm not a guy that teaches and preaches and coaches, fake it till you make it. No, man, I want to live in the truth. So point two is neutral thinking. We teach it. And that is, what is the truth and what are we going to do about it next? Okay, so the way I package and teach it to athletes, the 10-second version is, so what, now what? So what that this just happened in that first half? Now what am I going to do about it? Okay, well, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get a couple. We're talking basketball. I'm going to go out. I'm going to get the feel of the ball. I'm going to feel the court. And I'm going to really get some movement in. Perhaps I need to get a sweat going. I'm going to go to the free throw line. I'm going to make some shots. I'm going to get some rhythm again. But you notice what I'm doing is I'm living right there in that moment. Again, feet. I'm living in the moment, getting rhythm. I'm not worried about, and I'm not thinking about anything back here, because every time that those thoughts pop up, I'm dealing with it in the same way. So what that just happened? Over with. Now I'm focused on this. So what I'm really caring about is I care about the action of what is happening right this second. Again, kind of present thoughts. Third one, if I were to really nail down, I would really nail down the self-talk and the language that you're using in your mind. So what you say to yourself is 10x more important than anybody will ever tell you. Than your coach, your parent, your teacher, your friend, your teammate, doesn't matter. What you say in your own head. So the internal narrative that you play back is 10x more powerful. Well, guess what? What have we talked about in those previous 2 points? It's about living in the present. It's about accepting the what has happened in the past, moving forward. And the third is all about controlling the narrative. You're not trying to, what's a good way to say it? You're not trying to prevent negative thoughts from happening. They're going to come. But when they come, discard them, move on, live in the present. So, you know, it's really interesting. All three of those points, they all come back to living present. They all come back to dealing with the past and moving on and living in the present. And then being prepared to execute and move and play and compete at a high level right now in the present. So the three is really wrapped into one really simple grounded point that I'm going to pin the tail on the donkey on this one right there. Live in the present moment.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, so the emotions, I think, come into play a lot, and that living in the present, it's super tough to do, but it's like, can I have short-term memory loss, especially when it comes to everything that I have to do on the court, right? I'm a disheveled athlete, I'm losing my confidence, and now I'm on the bench in the locker room thinking, how do I come out in the second half? Well, I need to have short-term memory loss, right? I have to literally wipe away everything that happened in the first half, come out, again, live in the present, so what, now what, which is what you said. And then another thing that you said that I think is low key, but it's also one of the most important things that I see is, how do I get into a rhythm? Like, all athletes need a rhythm, whether it's a really big, I don't care if you're playing darts or if you're swimming, a professional swimmer. I don't care if you're running track. I don't care if it's a ball sport, lacrosse, what have you, tennis. There has to be a certain rhythm associated with that. And I think that a lot of athletes that are probably watching this, and you can agree to this as well, is if I'm losing confidence in my mind, my body's probably going to be tighter, right? I'm probably not going to, if I'm, playing baseball, I'm at bat and have really low confidence, I'm probably going to be tight on my swing. My swing mechanics aren't going to be as fluid as they used to be. Same thing with shot mechanics, same thing with any tennis, hit mechanics, forehand, backhand mechanics are going to be off. If the confidence is low, that does impact your physiological body, and there are physiological ramifications to that. So to your point, it's, how do I come out of halftime, wherever we're at? If I took a beat, it doesn't matter what sport I'm playing. How do I recover that? Short-term memory loss. So what, now what? How do I move forward, shake out the jitters, and come out there and still be in flow?
I love how you just repackage that, though, of the rhythm and the physiological feeling of, let's be real, if you're a golfer, think about all the fine motor of, involved. You're over that ball for maybe 3 seconds. And when you pull the trigger and swing and you have a slight hesitation because you have a last second thought that comes and hits you, and you pull just a quarter of an inch of a shoulder, an elbow, an arm, a leg, something, that ball is flying completely in a different trajectory, right? And that's golf, but it goes with any kind of either gross motor sport or even fine motor sports. Hesitation is a killer in confidence. I think actually we were texting about this the other day, maybe even today.
Yeah, I think we were. I'm working with a couple golf athletes, and I have in the past before. And it's almost like as soon as you're over the ball and you commit to your swing, obviously you're not thinking in the moment, but after you make contact with the ball is in flight, forget about it.
Yeah.
Like already release the outcome. Like if it's a hole in one, obviously, fist bump, there are going to be some emotional attachment there, but there's so much emotional attachment while the ball is in flight and you can't control any of it. And at that point, you did everything that you could do. So why is this impacting your confidence? Again, we would be dumb, frankly. I would be dumb. I'll just say that. If we didn't say that the outcome would be a source of your confidence. Of course it's going to be. Again, the streaky shooter. Or streaky games. Like there's a couple of games that I'm playing and I'm on fire. I'm just feeling it. Of course your confidence is going to be up. But don't anchor your confidence again on the outcome. But again, it does matter. So
okay, so let me throw it back to you. What do you think? We kind of already answered this, but let's answer it differently from a parent and from a coach standpoint. Why are parents and coaches so hung tight on outcome versus the opposite process?
The process.
Why are they so? Okay, let me try one more caveat to it. Why are parents, coaches so hamstrung on that?
The outcome. So the outcome is where all the glory is. It is, right? And so again, it's where the money is too, right? If I am not performing as well as I could be as an athlete, I may not get a scholarship. I may not get playing time. I may not get accolades or glory, right? So there's the praise, the psychological praise that you get, whether it's the tweets, whether it's the pats on the back, the attaboys, attagirls, whatever it is, or whether it's the physical things that you get that again represent the quality of your play on the field. Those things come. So yeah, of course they're going to get hung up on the outcomes. The outcomes could make or break your life, which again, that's part of the reason we have a job is because it shouldn't make or break your life in any way, shape, or form. No one performance should sit at the make or break, your life type of thing. But you have to have the confidence to still walk out there and take the shot. But yeah, that's why I think that people are hung up on the outcomes.
I agree. I think that one of the most difficult things to explain to parents and coaches is helping them reshape and develop a different mindset about how to improve their outcomes. And it's purely through process. Well, guess what? The tennis player that is trying to level up and increase their UTR score, they're running into all kinds of outcome level challenges. The player that they're playing up against has a higher UTR rating than them, and they talk themselves or psych themselves out. And yet when you watch those trainings that athlete is doing throughout the week, dude, they are living and dying and breathing everything around process. And then match day, tournament day, competition comes, and then it's almost like we just throw that playbook out the window. And I hear it. Okay, so I do this a lot, by the way. Down in South Texas, I will literally show up to tournament sites and competition sites just to be a spy. I may have one athlete playing in this whole city park wide. If my athlete's not playing, dude, I'm walking around court to court, just listening, eavesdropping into different parents, different athletes, and not just around the court. I'm eavesdropping around parents and families talking to their sons or daughters after they compete.
Yeah.
And I hear so much talk about outcomes as opposed to the things that we should be obsessed about. That is the process of how to win, the process of how to improve, the process of how to get better. And yes, outcomes have the rightful place. I'm not hating on it totally. They have the rightful place, but I find myself just eavesdropping so many different conversations, listening in, and to be honest, it really bothers me. I've actually done this before. I've actually intervened in a few conversations because I felt bad. I felt bad for the kid. I've watched the match. I had a little bit of like, man, I watched you, man. I interjected and I commented on like 4 or 5 processes I saw that was really good, and they're genuine compliments. It wasn't pie in the sky stuff. And you had to see kind of the reaction that the parents had. They were shocked. First of all, they were a little bit offended and a little upset because they're still ticked off that the kid lost to a kid's UTR level that was lower than him, and therefore his kid should have never lost. But I don't know what their training's life is like. But from a process standpoint, I was impressed. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, you take care of the process, you take care of the outcome. I mean, essentially that's, to bottom line it. But it is also very interesting too, because if you do tap into coaching psychology, and we talk to coaches sometimes too, we don't just see athletes, we also see coaches, and they influence how the athlete performs on a daily basis. And if that athlete is going to be hung up on outcomes solely, then you could kind of look at the coach and say, are they also hung up on outcomes solely? Right? And 9 times out of 10, it's yes. But again, the process is what is going to get you to that outcome. So it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, were the processes good or were they bad? 10 times out of 10, the processes were bad. Or maybe it just wasn't your day and it was just luck. I do want to switch gears here just a little bit. I want to talk about self-esteem and confidence. Now, self-esteem and confidence are 2 different things, as well as maybe the contrast between confidence and ego, right? So confidence and overconfidence. But I guess, how does one distinguish between self-esteem and confidence? So I guess, 2-part question. What's the difference between self-esteem and confidence? And does self-esteem have its place in your sport? Or does it at all?
Well, I think it certainly does, because when an athlete is, okay, let me try and answer through a story.
Yeah.
When an athlete is developing from a maturity standpoint, athletes are growing, they're interacting with peers, they're learning the ins and outs of failing and succeeding and winning and losing, setting goals, achieving goals, failing goals, the whole messy staircase of success, right? And success is not linear. Well, self-esteem is naturally being built, naturally happening. But what's also happening is that athlete is developing their own source of identity. Who are they as a person? And I think a lot of people, I write a little bit about this in the book, but I want to be careful making a blanket statement, but there's a lot of athletes that they will make their sport their identity. And self-esteem is really close attached to that. The downside, the danger, the caution in that is when self-esteem becomes identity, becomes really the primary source of who you are. If you don't have a good weekend, if you don't have a good couple tournaments, who are you? And I think self-esteem has a very high place in sport, but I want to be very careful with my athletes that we work with and make sure that those two are not married at the hip. And this is part of the Hearts and Minds mission, who you are as a person. You're unique, you're wonderful, you have skills and abilities that are special and unique. What's your potential? We don't know. Let's find out. But who you are matters a lot more than just what you can do for me, what you can produce, how many baskets you can shoot, how many tackles you make on the field. Like, that's cool. High five. Good for you. But I care about who you are as a person more. So I don't want my athletes' identity just to be wrapped up with their athletic accomplishments. And this is an interesting thing because self-esteem, identity, are really close together. So the best way I can answer through a story is athlete grows up, they marry that self-esteem and identity. They have a bad weekend, they have a series of a bad weekend, they have a bad season, and all of a sudden now we're seeing them for a whole new other reasons besides just we want them to perform better. Now we're seeing them also for reasons of I don't even know if I like myself anymore. I'm so hard on myself. Now I get a bad score on a quiz, and all I hear is my coach's voice saying, "Come on, why aren't you better than that?" And like all I hear is that now. So the flip side of that coin, can sport increase self-esteem? Can sport drive that self-esteem in a positive way? Absolutely. In the Western world, a little theoretical, philosophical here. In the Western world, sport is the last remaining place where athletes can go and compete intensely with legitimate outcomes and failures and disappointment, setbacks, and success. Is the last avenue where they can go and compete in a gladiator type even sport, even without fear of absolute carnage and death and destruction. Like the Olympic Games back in Greece in the circa 2000-ish years, whatever ago, people died in athletic competitions. Okay, I'm not downplaying it now. It still happens. So, God bless people. And that messy. Like, that's not what I say. But 20, 30 years ago, when I was growing up, ages me, teachers let us go play on the monkey bars with gravel pits underneath of us. You get scraped knees? Okay, well, get up, dust it off, pick the rocks out of your knees. Like, who cares? Oh, you got splinters because you got wood chips? Okay, pick them out. Like, I've got I don't know if you can see it. See that little black dot? I don't know if you can.
Can't see it.
You can't see it? Okay, here. There. See that? Okay, that's pencil lead. That's pencil lead. I got the pencil fight in second grade. That's graphite. And poor guy, the guy's name is Brian. Brian stabbed me. Like, you're not supposed to stab. And he jabbed me, right? We did dangerous things. And in doing so, it built resilience. It built self-esteem. It built that ability to be more resilient. Well, sport is one of the last places to be able to put yourself out there, learn that, experience that in a real way, deal with real consequences, deal with success, deal with failures, deal with goals, success, loss, up and downs, everything, the emotion roller coaster. And sports creates one of the safest, physically speaking, environments to be able to do that before you enter adulthood. So I am a firm, staunch believer that, self-esteem has a lot to do with who you are as an athlete, but it cannot be just married based on your outcomes and successes. You can't be just married on that.
Yeah. No, I totally understand and completely reciprocate everything that you're saying. And I almost, like, when you're talking, I was thinking to myself, like, what comes first? Almost like chicken and egg thing. And I almost think that self-esteem comes first, then confidence will, especially in your sport. And what I mean by that is, to your point, I think you also said this as well, which is, like, if you don't know who you are, and are comfortable with who you are, then chances are that you will second guess yourself. There'll be some negative self-talk in there. There will probably be some imposter syndrome, which we can talk about too, just because I think that has a lot to do with confidence, especially in sport or any performance context. And the result of that is a shaking again in that foundation, right? Because I would venture to say that, and I don't know if any study supports this, I would totally put this in the show notes, is there a correlation between people that are high or rank high in maybe a self-assessment surrounding self-esteem would also see an increased confidence on their field of play, right? Whatever sport that they do. I think that those two things are highly correlated. Just, again, theoretically, this is just no studies to back this up. This is just me talking here, but it would make sense, right? And to your other point, right, is like the decoupling of that. And that's what we see a lot. We were both college athletes, and we were both college coaches. And there is a massive identity crisis, I guess, if you will, surrounding student athlete, right? You're supposed to be a student, then an athlete, but it's usually backwards. You're an athlete student. And you wear your Letterman's jacket around. I mean, this is way back in the day, obviously, even though the Letterman jacket started to come back. But that was a really big source of self-esteem, right? Is to say that, hey, I'm the star quarterback. You would probably, date the hottest person in your school and take them to prom. And again, all of these are kind of I don't even know what you call them.
Stereotypes?
Stereotypes, yes, exactly. It is extremely stereotypical, but it is one of those things that I think a lot of individuals have. And another conversation that we could have, which I would definitely have, is as a biracial person, it was hard for me to fit the stereotype of African American in basketball, right? Oh, you're supposed to be good. Or in a person of Asian descent playing tennis, right? Like, oh, the stereotype is you're supposed to be good, right? So there, again, is a marriage between self-esteem and self-confidence, right? Do I agree with the stereotype? And if so, does that increase or decrease my confidence, right? So there's a lot going on here, very complicated topic. And, if I would have any advice, it would be to address the self-esteem first, decouple the self-esteem with the confidence, especially in your sport, if you can. However, again, those two things are correlated, and not to be so wrapped up in the outcome when you go to play. Like if I identify as, again, a basketball player, for example, I have a bad weekend, I lose a tournament, what have you, and then, my whole week is shot. Going into practice, the next day of practice, let's just say it's Monday, you're probably going to have a little bit lower confidence. It's going to linger a little bit. And again, I would say that that's totally normal. It's totally natural to be able to feel that way. Because again, the identity is wrapped up in this. But, if you can say that, hey, my self-esteem is totally fine, right? My self-esteem is totally fine, but I'm just bummed out that I lost the game.
Right.
My confidence is fine and my self-esteem is fine.
Right.
I'm still just bummed out that I lost and didn't perform. Totally fine.
Right.
But it's just, right, that self-acknowledgement, exercising the self-awareness to say, is this my self-esteem? And is my self-esteem too much, like wrapped up too much of my sport? Or is it not? And can I kind of like back off a little bit?
Okay, so simple terms. Know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't connect it just to the results or the outcomes or situations that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Be okay with the ups and downs that sport naturally brings. But circle back, know who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I would do. I mean, look, I think we're kind of long in the tooth right now. Let's do some rapid fire questions. I want your top tips to maintain or improve confidence. Again, we've kind of danced around the topic. We said that confidence is a really complex thing. I've heard that external sources of confidence, probably not great. Internal sources of confidence, way better. And again, self-esteem is linked to that, but we also said, be careful with that. It's a seesaw battle. So yeah, is it internal, external? And I guess, what are your top 3 tips to either gain or maintain your confidence?
No question, you can gain confidence from external rewards and circumstances such as really dominant outcomes and performances. Heck yeah, man. If you can draw inspiration and confidence from, do it, please. By all means, that's a place. It's a well to draw from, but don't draw from that permanently. If I were to give, let's do top 3. Top three confidence skills I would encourage any athlete. It's actually a great topic because we have this 30-day confidence challenge going on right now. It's a 30-day audio course packed with, I'm talking about mindset the entire time. I'm talking about the way to live and think as a just a warrior. So anyway, 3 different skills. Here we go. So 1, I already mentioned it earlier, but 1 is starting with a really strong foundational attitude with who you are, what you believe, and what are you willing to do and willing not to do. That's kind of a lot packed into 1, but that all circles around attitude and a belief system. What guides you? All right, so the way I lay it out in the book, I lay out a very complex kind of pyramid of different mental skills. So if you open up a sports psychology textbook, you're going to find, man, they're going to talk imagery, they're going to talk self-talk, goal settings, arousal, self-control, self-esteem. Okay, all these different skills, right? And what I was hearing over years and years and years is so many different athletes, what it really came down to is it came down to this 3 really central things to help an athlete play and compete at their best. Their attitude, having a really strong foundational, strong attitude. The second is choose what you're going to concentrate and be focusing on. It sounds so simple to do. Oh yeah, by the way, it is simple to do when you choose to eliminate distractions, and you choose to refocus on the task at hand, when you choose to refocus on the guy that you're guarding as opposed to what just happened at the other end of the floor. Okay, choosing your concentration and choosing your attention, your attentional focus, is a really powerful skill that you can develop and get really good at. And when you get really good at it, confidence naturally builds. It's a byproduct of having really great attention. The third is effort, the willingness to compete really hard, not try hard, compete hard. There's a difference. When you try hard, it produces a lot of stress and tension. I'm not saying try. I'm saying do it. Compete hard. If you're going to make a mistake and you're playing football, what do football coaches say? Go blow somebody up. Go take somebody out. Go decleat somebody. Hit somebody hard. Well, you got to be careful now with CTE. But still, go hit somebody hard if you're going to make a mistake. If you're going to set a screen in basketball and you're setting the wrong screen on the wrong guy, set a good screen. Like, do it. I think there's so much to say about when athletes are feeling a little bit unconfident. They're unwilling to go hard. I'm telling athletes, go hard. Compete hard. Why? Even if you make a mistake, what's your attitude that grounds that mistake? Oh, okay, well, this is just a mistake. Try to package it up. Your attitude, unshakable, having a really strong foundation. What attention you put on things, where's your attention spotlight at? Are you going to spotlight the mistake? Are you going to spotlight what comes next? Again, being where your feet are. We talked about that earlier. And then E, your effort. What kind of effort are you willing to commit to, even though you may make as many mistakes in a game? Compete hard.
I love that. Love that. I mean, I think those are the best sources of confidence. And to draw on those sources of confidence, I mean, that's a bottomless well, right? Like some of the, outcome, that's a finite well that you're only going to get so much there. But when especially it comes to effort, that's one of the things that hit home for me more than anything is I could be competing and I could be competing at my worst. I'm not contributing anything I feel like on the court or wherever I am, and I'm totally losing my confidence. Well, I'm going to go out playing as hard as I can. And if I have anything left in the gas tank at the end of the game or wherever I am, then I didn't do my best, right? But it's just to keep going.
Let me hop in there real fast. If any of you that are listening and you're wanting to get recruited, I'm just flat going to tell you, like, there's going to be moments and times when you're competing, you're playing, and you're being scouted. You may not even know it. But coaches are wanting to watch you on your worst days. They're wanting to know because they know inevitably when you get to their school, you're going to have bad days. What kind of effort are you going to produce? One side note, maybe we can link this. Coach Gino from UConn women's basketball, he gives a preseason talk every season in the most quiet, subtle voice you can imagine. And he just does it. He goes, at UConn, we don't coach effort. You know why? If you don't dive on the ball for that loose ball, I got 9 others on the bench willing to. You ain't going to play. You got to listen to this. Maybe we can link it, but it is unbelievable because it's so raw and, well, his success speaks for itself, right? But it's real and it's the way that their program is guided. Well, guess what? What inspiration can you draw from my young athlete or athletes listening to this is understand that your effort is a tremendous benchmark that all coaches care about. They do. And they know you're going to have bad days. They know you're not going to be the most confident at times. They don't care. They want to see who shows up, what version of you shows up even when you're not confident.
Point blank, honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that if you're an athlete out there that's trying to get recruited to play college ball anywhere or college anything, swimming, what have you, your coach really doesn't care because I've seen the most talented people and they have the worst mindset. And if they get whatever, they're just not having a good day, then it's all downhill from there. Oh, I'm not having a good day. Right? Confidence is shot and their effort is demolished. Right. But if you're an average athlete, but you can bounce back from these bad plays, bad what have you, go into the locker room, recoup, come back out at halftime and absolutely kill it and have the best confidence in the world, the coach is going to love that athlete. Me as a former coach, love that athlete. Would rather recruit that athlete. And now we're talking about consistency, essentially. I'd rather recruit a consistent athlete than a non-consistent athlete, especially when it comes to mental. Right? Your mental consistency is the number one thing that's definitely going to set you apart from those other people. And I know that you know that Trevor, as well. Like, some talented, really, really talented kids that would get in their head and their whole day is ruined. I knew a high jumper like that. He would just miss maybe a couple, and the most talented dude in the world, like springs in his legs. And if he hit a couple and, faulted, it was all downhill from there, right? So if you could be a consistent athlete and bounce back, to Trevor's point, again, that attitude, if you could bounce back from the failures of the things that aren't happening very well and forget those, be where your feet are, get some self-talk in you and get after it again, that's going to maintain your confidence.
It's really interesting, Dave, by the way, that you just brought up the second C word that I hear the most is consistency. The number one, number two things I'm constantly hearing from parents, coaches, teams, organizations, businesses even, how do we get people to be more confident? How do we get people to be more consistent? I'm hearing those messages on repeat for close to 10 years now. And it's amazing. The more that you listen to the challenges presented and the struggles that people are going through, so much comes back to those really simple elements. What kind of effort are you giving on a consistent basis? Where's your attentional spotlight and focus and attention going? What kind of attitude and mindset and worldview is really driving the bus? And I don't want to say that I want to beat the dead horse here, but so much of performance is, when you look at it, performance is performance, stress is stress. The same mechanisms that make that surgeon successful on a consistent basis, day in, day out, are the same elements over here that makes that basketball player, the hockey player, the tennis player, whatever, swimmer, any other sport. It makes them also successful as well. It's the same mechanisms. And I'm blessed and privileged to be able to work with some of the world's best across multitude of disciplines, including in the business sector. And when we study successful people, what's really interesting is like the same kind of consistencies that they're hitting on over here are the same kind of habits and mindset patterns that happen over here.
100%. As we close today, just want to give a shout out to the confidence study. 30 days confidence study. Go sign up for that bad boy by Hearts and Minds. And I think we launch tomorrow, right?
Yeah, March 20th. If you're watching this and you want to get more information about it, drop us a DM. Perhaps you could be watching this a couple months later. Drop us a DM, let me know, and I'll see if I can't get you at least
it's continuing, ongoing,
some information on it. And yeah, for sure, I got you.
Yeah, that and other updates. Oh, Focus 5 app, totally free. Mental fitness app called Focus 5 from us, completely free. Go sign up for that bad boy today. And with that, yeah, any last words, Jeff?
So I think one really interesting thing that we saw in 2020, you kind of touched on it, but I think COVID exposed the identity crisis that the world is going through and still kind of resetting through. And some of those kids and young people that were in elementary school, middle school, now they're coming up through the high school ranks, middle school ranks. They're struggling with a lot of challenges. They're struggling with a lot of things. There's a whole generation of kids that I don't think we've seen the real effects yet of COVID. I'm starting to see it. And that was one of the big pushes for us creating the app in the first place. It was, we wanted to create an affordable and accessible way to be able to get people mental training on a proactive level. So that's what we did. So we were running a subscription-based side, and we said, you know what, we really, truly believe and we want to be the change we want to see in the world. We believe in that so much, we said, okay, well, we're going to make the app perpetually free from now until free. What's the strings attached? I get asked that, actually. I get asked a handful of times this weekend. And my answer is nothing. And they go, wait, you obviously want something. I'm like, share the good news.
Yeah.
If it helps you, share it with somebody. Let somebody else know what you're doing. Let somebody else know your experience. Let somebody else know about this podcast. That would be the absolute best thing that you could ever do for us, is just share the good graces. I talked about this in the confidence study a little bit, Dave, is a lot of people, I'm starting to be a little bit more vocal on social media. I'm starting to get the word out a little bit more about me personally, our brand, our team, our mission. But I got asked, Trev, how come we've never heard of you? I said, well, I keep a low profile. And I do the absolute best I can up to this point to keep a low profile, working with a lot of pros and a lot of great Olympic athletes, done a lot of really cool projects and things, but I've never been a guy to blow the horn hard and say, hey, here we are, woo! And then I've got my team now yelling at me, say, Trev, it's time, come on, let's go, let's move. That guy. Anyway, but we've never had to do any advertising, marketing, anything like that, and now we're going to. So we're now going to start letting the word be known, but we want to be the change that we want to see in the world as it pertains to mental fitness. So therefore, our app is perpetually free. You got live DM access. We've got a lot of other offerings, a lot of other ways that you can get very specific content in there. But the biggest thing I want you to take away is it's a live coaching app. So every Sunday night, we host a live coaching call as well. It's a global coaching call. Tonight we had one. We had a dozen or so athletes on it. It was really cool. We're talking confidence, self-talk, anxiety as well. So it's a live coaching app, a live coaching system, and it's called Focus 5 because we want 5 intentional minutes to brain train a day. And we know, and we've seen it with one beta test we did. We've got another study going on now, but with one beta test, we saw confidence go up 89%, anxiety decrease by 91%. Like we know we're over the target. So 5 intentional minutes a day. I'm so excited for what we have to offer.
Yeah, no, I'm excited as well. I mean, Focus 5 app, totally free. Again, our gift to the world, really. It's like us as former athletes, former coaches, we've been here. And we know that mental, and coaches say it as well, athletes say it as well, it is probably the most important attribute of an athlete. And people train physical all day, all night, but they really don't train mental. And so we want to be that. And we're giving it away for free. And I think that's the best thing when it comes to mental fitness. And another one of the things I guess that I'll leave you guys with, especially when it comes to confidence, is I think athletes nowadays are really just in their own head. They're in their own head, and there's a lot of pressures that I think that myself and you didn't have to deal with as much. And in social media, I don't want to be one of these like old guys that's, oh, social media this, social media that. It's really about how you internalize it. And I think when it comes to self-esteem, self-confidence, yeah, maybe it was driven by the pandemic and the isolation that a lot of people felt that magnified the, how do I communicate with others? How am I interacting with people? Am I socializing? Am I not? Am I choosing not to? And then, how does that impact my confidence on the playing field? I think you're right, Trevor. I think we're not really seeing the ramifications of that as big and as broad into like the wide context of life as maybe like myself and you are seeing that. So we predicted it too, and obviously we're in the field, but I think that there's a lot of, NIL is one of the things, right, that's coming across. There's just tons of pressure from all angles on sport and on athletics, and the personalization of it, right? Like my whole identity is wrapped up in it. And when that comes to your confidence, there's a lot of things that athletes can have their confidence shot. Ben Simmons is a really good example of this. I'm not sure if you know his story.
Yeah.
But Ben Simmons' confidence absolutely shot when he went to the NBA. And he literally had to sit out for seasons. Marco Fultz is another one actually in the NBA that had to sit out seasons claiming that he had a physical injury, while I think that everybody knows it was his mind and his mindset was keeping him from that. And it was confidence. And it was, what are the writers going to think? Like, imagine being mid jump shot thinking, what are the writers going to say about me if I, miss, right? Or what is this person going to say? Or what is that? So I think that people can get it in their own heads. And I think it's now worse than ever. So yeah, I guess if I'm going to leave you with that, I think that, Hearts and Minds is there for you. Download the app and get mentally fit.
Let's go. Dave, thanks. This is fun.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I appreciate it.